Junichi is a wimp who can't get his pickle wet, but his life changes when he is dared to ask the most plotful girl at school to be her girlfriend, and it turns him into the Chad that all girls want as their baby daddy. But before this, it was a new semester, and all around Junichi were couples who were in love, unlike him and his virgin buddies, Shinpei, Kigo, and Minoru. Even in class, the lovebirds surround them, hurting Shinpei's lonely soul. Seeing all the couples makes Junichi confused about why the anime gods can't bless him with a baddie that's going to tickle his pickle. Suddenly, a shorty with massive melons, Nene, appears like a Pokemon and gives Junichi the lunch that he left at home. Despite being childhood friends, Junichi is not interested in her despite Nene flirting with him. After seeing this happen, the fellas start interrogating Junichi, demanding he introduce Nene to them so they can dive headfirst into her sea of creamy milk. They start yapping nonsense about why Nene is the perfect combo of a shorty and outrageous jugs. During the commotion, a black-haired cutie named Yui appears and greets Junichi, showing her happiness to be in the same class as him again. Again, the boys start leering over Yui and appreciate her beauty despite her lack of plumps on the front. Then, the boys start reading some plotful magazines for the culture, not caring what others think, and while Junichi is against what they're doing, Shinpei offers him to join them to see the newest Mia Malkova photoshoot, which makes Junichi fold. Suddenly, a girl appears and Junichi drops the magazine on her feet out of shock. Junichi tries to explain himself, but Yukana, the girl with thicker plots than life, calls Junichi out on his degeneracy and roasts him for having a little shrimp. Later, the boys start glazing Yukana, wishing she would step on them, and Shinpei suggests the idea that they should try and go for Yukana. Shinpei explains that from his deep research, girls like her fold easily, and they will gobble glizzies faster than the Flash. Seeing his conviction, Junichi is now convinced and imagines Yukana actually doing it to him, showing him the reason why men go to war and surrendering to her plot holes. During his intense imagination, the boys have decided that Junichi will be their sacrificial lamb, and he will be the one to confess his feelings to Yukana. Later, Yukana finds a love letter the boys made, asking her to meet, and seeing this, she cancels her plans with her best friend, Ranko, and goes to meet her mystery man. Following this, she confronts Junichi, and he feels like he's been screwed over by his buddies for having to do this. Despite that, Junichi wants his cherry to be popped, so he lies down and starts begging for Yukana to date him. Yukana realizes he's the same guy with the dirty magazine, and hearing this, Junichi says goodbyes to his potentially plotful life and imagines the life after with everyone giving him dirty looks for being a wimp. However, in his position, Junichi can see Yukana's slice of heaven, and knowing he won't have a bright future, he refuses to get up and keeps peeking. Then Yukana asks Junichi what he likes about her, and he starts yapping nonsense, not wanting her to know that his reason is to clap her. But Yukana knows it quickly and tells Junichi that she won't date him for that reason. Realizing he's stuck in a pinch, he imagines a life where people call him a scum for dating her just to pop his own cherry. In his head, he wants to run away, but seeing what's between Yukana's legs awakens his inner simp Junichi, who beats the hell out of his common sense and makes Junichi continue his mission. Yukana catches him peeking and calls him out, but instead of scolding him, Yukana gets closer and teases him to take another peek. When Junichi does peek at her, she tricks him and starts laughing at his degeneracy, which pisses off Junichi. However, Yukana asks if he really does like her, and Junichi refuses to get tricked again, fully accepting his life as a loser. But Yukana stops him, corners him, and tells Junichi that she likes him and they can go out. That night, Junichi can't believe that the anime gods have finally blessed him with a plotful girl. The next morning, Junichi is reassessing his new plotful situation when his buddies appear and apologize for what happened. They already assumed that it went horribly, and Junichi worries that Yukana is just playing games to make him look like a fool, but the boys assure Junichi that he and his loser squad will always be virgin buddies for life. Suddenly, Yukana sends Junichi a cute picture of her, and it sends his buddies into a frenzy, and they completely treat him like trash. While Junichi is trying to explain himself, Shinpei asks if he has kissed Yukana, and when Junichi denies it, Shinpei assures him that kissing is something that is normal to girls like Yukana. Junichi sees the truth in what his friend said and realizes that one day, Junichi has to kiss Yukana on both upper and lower lips. However, Shinpei tells Junichi that he has to take Yukana to a karaoke and explains that karaoke is the perfect place to get some privacy. Shinpei starts yapping nonsense that at karaoke, girls like Yukana will start by singing dirty songs together, then showing her his plots and finally gobbling his glizzy. Later, Yui greets Junichi as usual in class, but then Yukana pops up and starts getting chummy with him, and when she reveals that they're dating, it shocks the whole class and their mamas. After school, his buddies go home without him, and when Junichi chases them, they tell Junichi to eat dirt and gag on it. Then, Yukana jumps in and invites Junichi to come with her, and outside of school, Nene, who's waiting for Junichi, gets in shock seeing him and Yukana holding hands. Then, the couple go to a karaoke, and Junichi realizes his chance for his pickle to be tickled. He realizes that all the music he knows are only Darude Sandstorm and its remixes, and feels even worse when he finds out he's just replacing Yukana's friends. In the booth, Junichi sees a warning that says that jiggling a girl's jugs is not allowed, which makes him panic. Yukana walks in with some drinks, and when she tries to sit down, she almost makes Junichi squeal, and here he thinks that Yukana is tempting him to make a move. He starts imagining Yukana going aggressive and making him sing the song where they can scream a lot of happy noises, but in reality, Yukana is just having fun. She sings along to her songs, and Junichi realizes that he also has to sing and shows what his throat can do while not knowing what song to pick. Suddenly, Yukana starts singing a dirty song, and here, Junichi remembers what Shinpei told him where he is heading to a plotful progression. Then Yukana picks a song, and Junichi recognizes it, so they sing a duet together, having fun without any degeneracy. After the song, Yukana tells Junichi that she's also a weeb and knows a lot of anime songs, which makes Junichi think she's trying to make him feel better. They get a bit closer, and Yukana starts taking off her layers, making Shinpei's prediction come true. Realizing this, Junichi goes for the offense and almost kisses her, but stops after Yukana points out his nose hair, which destroys his chances. Yukana goes to the toilet, but there she realizes she was almost kissed and blushes. Afterward, while Junichi is cursing his nose hairs, Yukana thanks Junichi for the day and asks him to go on more dates, but Renko is there stalking them. The next day at school, Junichi finds a love letter telling him to meet up, but seeing the letter, his friends are in tears, and they start thinking about what kind of idiot would actually have the missing chromosomes to want to date Junichi. However, Junichi doesn't want to meet this person, out of loyalty to Yukana, but his friends use reverse psychology, making it seem that Yukana would be disappointed if he doesn't respond to the letter. Kigo tries to be the voice of reason, but Shinpei convinces him that if Junichi can start his own harem, he will share some of his baddies with his friends, and after hearing this, they fully support Junichi in meeting this mysterious girl. Then Junichi meets the girl, who turns out to be Renko, and he's scared that her snoo might squeeze him dry. Renko starts sniffing him and knows that he's a virgin before she starts tempting Junichi using her plots, telling him how much of a good boy he is. Renko offers to give him a quickie, which makes Junichi slip and fall to the ground, and after seeing his position, Renko gets on top of him and starts playing the game of finding the pickle. Suddenly, Yukana pops up, and Junichi imagines that Yukana will get pissed while Renko continues to toy with him. But instead, Yukana responds calmly and gets Renko to get off Junichi. She introduces Renko as her best friend who has smaller melons, and Renko takes her chance to play with Yukana while giving Junichi a live show, slowly making him fold and imagining the idea of scissors. Renko asks Yukana if she has sealed the deal with Junichi, but Yukana blows her off and leaves with Junichi, leaving Renko annoyed and wanting to break them up. That night, Yukana asks for the three of them to hang out, and so, the next day, they have fun together, playing bowling and fooling around like they're a throuple, and when Nene accidentally sees them, she starts crying and runs away. Then the trio tries out some clothes, and Yukana asks Junichi for his opinion on two options, which both make him excited. While Junichi picks one option, Renko barges in and picks the other, making Junichi the third wheel. In another store, they give Junichi his private fashion show, causing him to freeze, focusing only on her plots, and it annoys Yukana that he doesn't compliment what she's wearing, while Renko, who's seeing this, gets jealous. After they're done, some NPCs bother them, looking to get lucky with the girls. Seeing this, Junichi tries to defend the girls like he's Goku, but quickly gets folded like he's Yamcha. Renko steps in and tells these scums that they can have her and double-team her instead. They take Renko somewhere quiet with them, but after a few minutes, Renko goes back after she'd shown those creeps who's their mommy. Then, Junichi goes home, realizing how much of a wimp he is for not being able to protect Yukana, but in front of his house is Ranko, who praises him for his effort and tells Junichi that she likes him. Ranko pulls Junichi to his own house and sits next to him on his couch before getting on top of him and asking him to lay her the pipe. However, when Junichi tries to decline her, Ranko gets even more aggressive, pushing her plots on him even tighter and pushing him down. Ranko tells Junichi that she knows how pent up he is and how, unlike Yukana, who makes it difficult, she can give it to him easily and finally pop his cherry. Junichi remembers Yukana and her smile, giving him the strength to reject Ranko. With full chest and conviction, Junichi tells Ranko that he wants Yukana to pop his cherry, and because of that, Ranko is angry, pushing him down and telling him to keep his dirty pickle away from Yukana. It confuses Ranko as to why Yukana picked him, refusing to accept it, and here, Junichi realizes that Ranko likes Yukana. Just as she's about to tickle his pickle, Yukana barges in, telling Ranko to stop, and while Ranko is worried that Yukana heard what she said, Yukana doesn't hear a thing and accuses them of cheating behind her back. Without missing a beat, Ranko takes the chance and lies to Yukana, telling her she was just testing Junichi's loyalty. With a sigh of relief, Yukana thanks Ranko for approving her relationship and tells her she loves her, which makes Ranko remember the past when she fell for Yukana. Ranko starts crying and apologizing to Yukana. Junichi thinks that now Ranko is fine with his relationship, but the next day she confronts him and tells him to keep his mouth shut about her feelings for Yukana. While that happens, Yui is stalking them with jealousy in her eyes. She turns out to be a narcissistic skank who believes everything revolves around her. When she first met Junichi, she thought of him as a dog only good for licking her feet. That night, after his experience with gals like Yukana and Ranko, Junichi researches gals while busting one out to their plots. He stumbles on a gal streamer called Boa, and she vents about some dude who grew distant from her, but Junichi leaves her a message, calling her cute. The next morning, Yui arrives in class treating everyone like her slaves, deeming them all peasants that are below her. She overhears a conversation behind her where Junichi and his buddies are talking about Bo, which they all considered to be cute. Just then, Shinpei somewhat recognizes Bo's face, but just as he's about to realize who she really is, his brain gets fried due to watching too much Johnny Sins. At lunch, Junichi eats with Yukana, and while he eats, he starts imagining her giving him her strawberries through a mouth-to-mouth technique. However, while he wants that to happen, he knows it's impossible since Ranko is there with them as the third wheel. After what happened the other day, Junichi believes that Ranko is planning something, and when he looks at her, she glares back at him as if saying she will make him squeal. Just then, Yui pops up, asking to talk to Junichi privately, but Ranko gets annoyed and tells Yui to gag on a glizzy and leave them alone. Yui walks off with an evil smile hidden under her mask, and Ranko asks Junichi if Yui is his baby mama, but Junichi assures her that Yui is no one to him. After school, Yukana goes to hang out with her friends, telling Junichi not to beat too much while she's gone. Just then, Yui pops up behind him and rizzes him up, asking him to help her out with something the teacher asked her to do. Then, they go to a cafe which confuses Junichi, who thinks they're supposed to help the teacher, but he remembers what Shinpei told him about serious gals. However, Yui is only here to talk, and she asks him about his relationship with Yukana. Junichi reveals that he's dating her, and after hearing this, Yui gets upset. Meanwhile, Shinpei is doing detective work by watching Boa, and when he hears her talking about her slaves, he realizes who Boa really is. The next day, Yukana can only watch as Yui ogles over her lover, Junichi, which makes Yukana jealous. However, hiding from them, Shinpei is taking a picture of Yui without her knowing. Then Shinpei gathers the boys and reveals to them that he knows who Boa is. While they get excited, wanting to know her social security number, Shinpei tells them that Boa is closer than they think. He reveals a picture of Boa and Yui side by side and plays them a recording of Boa talking about her slaves. They realize who she was talking about, and after matching the two pictures, they see that Yui is Boa. Suddenly, Ranko pops up, which scares them and demands them to spill the tea about Yui. Later, Yui is still ogling Junichi, which makes Yukana jealous and causes her to go home with her friends instead of Junichi. Yui asks Junichi for another help, but this time she drags him to the roof, which confuses his skibidi monkey brain about what's going on. She starts yapping about how she actually loves him and wants to be his lover who squeezes out his baby batter every night. However, she also asks him to break up with Yukana so his pickle can be exclusive to Yui. Junichi rejects her proposal, telling her that Yukana's puddings are better than her flat cardboards, and it angers her. Yui shows her true face, telling Junichi that as her dog, he shouldn't be humping some other girl's leg, and instead only love her. To blackmail him, Yui pulls out a video recording of their date in the cafe, telling Junichi that she will show Yukana the video if he doesn't break up. Just as Junichi is about to fold, his heroes pop up in the form of Renko and the three stooges who jump down and land horribly apart from Renko. Yui starts talking smack to Renko, telling her and her fake tan cheeks to go away, but it only makes Renko even more eager to make Yui squeal. She whispers in Yui's ear, revealing that she knows her as Bo, and it completely shakes Yui's bimbo heart to its core. She hands over the recording to Junichi and walks past the real heroes, the three idiots, before forgetting her defeat. While deep down Renko wants to clap Junichi dead, she tells him that she doesn't want Yukana to be sad, hence why she helped him. Just then, Yukana pops up and asks Junichi to go home together. On their walk, Junichi assures Yukana that he and Yui are not a thing. But Yukana is not worried at all as she knows that Junichi only goons to her. The next morning, Junichi dreams about Yukana waking him and his big junior up from bed, but just as he's about to lay the pipe, he wakes up and holds someone else. He sees a girl he doesn't recognize in bed, and when he asks her who she is, she gets upset. The gal tells him that she is Nene, her childhood friend with jugs bigger than her head, and it shocks Junichi why she's in his room. Then on the way to school, Nene refuses to let go of him, and Junichi is worried someone might see them. Just then, the boys pop up, and after seeing Nene and her floaties, they get jealous of him, asking the anime gods why Junichi gets all the girls while they starve. They ask Junichi to introduce her, and when Nene reveals that she is Junichi's childhood friend, they run away, cursing Junichi and his baby mamas. Later, Junichi meets Yui, who's back to her fake self in front of the lockers, and she asks him to not tell anyone about what happened. However, Nene recognizes a girl's smell on him, and when Nene walks in, she realizes that it's this midget with balloon smell. They look at each other, and Nene can see right through Yui, so she starts roasting her. In class, Junichi is absolutely drained after dealing with so much plot progression, and when Yukana greets him, she sees how tired he looks. To cheer him up, she invites him to hang out with her for the weekend, and it brings Junichi's spirit back to life. Then, Junichi has lunch with Yukana and Renko, where Yukana shoves her bread in Junichi's mouth so he can feel what a woman feels. Just then, Nene pops up and gets chummy with Junichi. She gives him a homemade cookie and licks him to taste his manly sweat, but Yukana is not happy seeing this. Renko asks Junichi who this disproportionate midget is, and Junichi realizes that he's screwed. He imagines Renko whooping his sweet cheeks in the ring and finally taking Yukana for herself. However, Yukana recognizes who Nene is after seeing how massive her badonkadonks are, telling her she's cute. Nene tries to assert her dominance, but Yukana is unfazed by anything Nene tries, so Nene starts looking for something she has that's better than Yukana's. She realizes what it is and start a battle between 4 balloons, proving to Yukana that hers are superior. However, Yukana is amused and calls Renko to join in. Junichi starts being philosophical, preaching how all wars in history will end in a heartbeat if people see what the girls are doing with their puppies. Nene gets angry about this and calls out Yukana for being fake, saying that she's only toying with Junichi after knowing that Junichi can't bag any baddie. Yukana feels upset and asks her why she thinks that, and Nene tells her that it's because she knows Junichi longer than anyone. It insults Yukana, so she calls out Nene, telling her that if she knows Junichi better, she should know that deep down, Junichi is a Sigma Chad that any woman or man would love to clap. That night, while watching a bowstring, Junichi goes to sleep. Suddenly, Nene pops out from under the blanket, wanting Junichi's golden pickle. She gets even more aggressive, which triggers a battle in Junichi's head, between Simp Junichi and Chad Junichi. Simp Junichi fights for the sake of clapping cheeks, but Chad Junichi fights for the precious relationship Junichi has with Yukana. Chad Junichi turns Super Saiyan, defeats the Simp, and declares to all the Junichis that they will stay a loser virgin until Yukana decides to change that. Junichi covers up Nene and tells her that he can't do it, saying that because he cherishes her, he refuses to take her vulnerability just for him to lay the pipe. Here, Nene remembers the past when Junichi was a wimpy loser, but now she realizes that what Yukana said was the truth, and that Junichi is a Sigma Chad that any woman would love to gobble. The next morning, Yukana tries to cheer up Junichi using her body, but when he doesn't react to her attempt, She pushes his head on her plumps and finally gets the reaction that she wanted, and here, Junichi realizes that she has been worried about him all this time. Suddenly, Nene shows up motivated and declares war on Yukana, stating that she will become a cooler gal than her to steal Junichi and his beautiful golden pickle away from her, and Yukana smiles at her statement. Days later, Shinpei introduces Junichi to the king's game, saying that he can use that game to get between Yukana's sweet cheeks, and when he asks how to do it, they explain that they can cheat the king's game for him if he can get them all to hang out together at Yukana's house. At lunch, while Yukana is telling him about summer plans, he phases out, which annoys her. Wanting to lay the almighty pipe, he asks if he can go to her house, and Yukana happily tells him to come. However, Junichi adds that others will join, and while Yukana agrees, she gets upset as she wants to be alone with him. Then Yukana tells him that before the others arrive, they will have some time alone, and Junichi starts imagining Yukana, as plotful as ever on top of him, wanting to do hot yoga. Yui pops up next to him and asks him why he is so happy just now. He reveals about the hangout at Yukana's place, and after hearing this, Yui pushes herself to him, wanting to join, causing Junichi to fold and include her too. Then, Junichi heads to Yukana's house where she has to change clothes first. He starts contemplating taking a peek, and while Yukana encourages him to do it, he disappoints all of us degenerates by not doing it. He enters Yukana's aromatic-smelling, cute-looking room with her waiting for him, sitting on the floor. He looks her up from top to bottom, realizing how much of a lucky idiot he is to bag her. However, she's not against it, and when she whispers in his ear, saying that her parents are not here, he realizes that she actually wants them to be alone. Junichi starts regretting inviting the others, but Yukana takes her chance while they're still alone and asks him to jiggle her jugs. But just as he's about to do it, the girls arrive, stopping mini Yukanas from being made. Renko asks the two lovebirds what they are up to, and Yukana assures her that she is just teasing Junichi, claiming that Junichi is too much of a wimp to be able to lay her the pipe. Nene jumps Junichi with her plots, while Yui knees Junichi on his ugly face for no reason. Renko wonders why Yui's bitch ass is here with them, and Yui tells this bimbo to mind her own skanky business. Minutes later, the boys arrive, looking like anime fans who are keyboard warriors. Junichi introduces his friends to the girls, and Shinpei suggests that they should play the king's game. Yui feels suspicious that the boys want something degenerate, but after hearing this, both Nene and Renko agree to play as Nene wants to gobble Junichi's glizzy. The first round starts with Kigo being the king, and he orders number 2 to slap number 5, and Renko slaps Junichi, leaving a slap mark on his face. While in pain, Junichi feels happy to know that they're not doing anything weird, but Shinpei assures him that the fun is yet to come. The second round starts with Yukana being the king, and she orders number 1 to introduce themselves in a baby voice. It turns out to be Yui, so Yui introduces herself like a baby. The third round starts with Yui becoming the king, and she orders number 6 to pose like they want to get their guts rearranged. It turns out to be Nene, and she does it flawlessly while wanting Junichi to pay attention. The game continues with each round going crazier. In the final round, Shinpei tells Junichi that he's planning to make Yukana kiss Junichi. He tells Junichi his cheating method, but after hearing it, Junichi feels conflicted. The last round starts with Shinpei as the king, and he orders number 1 to kiss him, while number 2 kisses number 3. However, all the numbers turn out to be the boys, and Shinpei realizes that Junichi screwed over the boys, all for the sake of getting the girls away from the boys' crusty-ass lips. The girls encourage these manly dudes to kiss each other, and while Junichi painfully kisses Shinpei, Minoru gives Kigo the French fatty special smooch. Then the girls acknowledge how much fun they have while the boys are traumatized after tasting their fellow dudes' lips. However, Yukana whispers to Junichi, thanking him for saving them, and he realizes that Yukana knows about what happened. With the bond they have created, Yukana suggests that they all should spend summer break together somewhere. But Nene and Junichi inform the others that they are broke, so Yukana suggests a great idea and that they should find part-time jobs together to make some money. Days later, the boys celebrate the fact that they're going to spend summer with girls and their sweet cheeks. They discuss part-time jobs, and Shinpei, being the Chad that he is, starts suggesting jobs for his homies. He gives himself and Kigo a job at the anime store while sending Minoru to help with the daycare. When it gets to Junichi, he suggests a maid cafe, and while Junichi doesn't feel confident wearing cosplays, Shinpei tells him that he will be a kitchen staff. Then, they start their work where Kigo and Shinpei work under Sam Jackson as their boss, and while they struggle on their first day, they manage to finish their day. Meanwhile, Junichi arrives at the maid cafe, and there, the anime gods bless him as all the girls work there as the servers. The manager pops up, and instead of giving them instructions, he just glares like a degenerate at the girls with a grin on his face, but when he gets to Junichi, he tells his clapped face to start working. Then the store opens and one of the customers asks Yukana to cast some magic spell to make his food taste better, and Yukana does so while spreading her sweat, which makes the food taste better. Meanwhile, Yui struggles at her job and slips on the floor, which reveals her glorious blue stripes. Just then, a customer spills his drink in front of Renko, and when Renko cleans it, he gets distracted by the lovely sight in front of him. He gets bolder and asks her to clean off the cream, but instead of getting lucky, Renko aims at his little junior. Days later, Shinpei starts cooking at his job, showing both Kigo and his boss that his scrawny hand can both bag baddies and work like a horse. Back in the cafe, Junichi accidentally walks into Yui changing her clothes, and she slaps him for having his eyes on her non-existent plumps. Days later, the air conditioner is broken, and while Yukana can't take the heat, she sees Junichi's drink and sips from it to refresh herself. Junichi gets flustered over the fact that it's an indirect kiss. However, when he's about to take a sip, Renko walks in, causing him to drop the bottle. In the anime store, Shinpei has been promoted to manager, and he starts telling people what to do like they're his slaves. Days after weeks of work, they reach a week before the summer beach trip. That night, Junichi goes to sleep thinking about how it's finally their last day of work tomorrow. The next day, Junichi arrives at the cafe with the girls in costume, and Yukana explains that today, there's a book day where the girls will read books to the customers. Yui tests it out by reading one of the books, but as she's reading, she realizes something is off. Yui rejects this degeneracy and goes to find the manager, leaving Junichi and the girls with the books. Nene gets curious and reads a different book where it's a story about how Deku claps Bakugo's mom and becomes Bakugo's new dad, but as she's reading, Yukana feels fuzzy inside. Renko takes the book from Nene, and because she wants to make Yukana cream in front of her, Renko continues Nene's story, but she adds happy noises to make it more real. Seeing how Junichi is enjoying this, Yukana joins in wanting to make him squeal, and she starts reading a story about how when Peppa Pig goes to school, Junichi tells them to stop, rebuking this degeneracy. Just then, the manager pops up, wanting them to continue, but Junichi calls him a creep and demands that the book reading stop to prevent the girls from being humiliated. Just then, Yui comes in with a phone in hand, telling the manager that the owner wants to speak. He talks to the owners and gets scolded for this event, causing him to have to stop it. They all praise Yui for saving them, while Renko is upset as she wants to read those books some more. Afterward, they get their wages and go home, and during their walk, Yukana tells Junichi that he was so hot in defending the girls against the manager, stating that she almost begged for his babies. Junichi then asks her what other jobs she would like to try, and she tells him that she would love to work in a karaoke or a family restaurant, and that she wants him to join her. Suddenly, she stops in her tracks and states that even though they're going to the beach with the others, she also wants to go somewhere just the two of them one day. Days later, summer break arrives, and the boys are at the beach, excited and celebrating over the fact that they get to spend the day with girls in their bikinis. Renko pops up first in her baby blues. Yui and Nene show up as a contradictive duo where one is packing floaties while the other is flat as cardboard, but to the boys, all sizes are good sizes. Nene latches on to Junichi, wanting him to fold, but just as he's about to, Yukana walks in, which blesses our virgin eyes, and Junichi acknowledges that she is the thickest and the most plotful. Junichi starts the day by preparing a chair for Yui, but when Yukana calls him to the water, he joins her and leaves Yui alone. They play water fight, making each other wetter, and Nene jumps on his back to make him feel what clouds feel like. Yui pops in with a water gun to join them and warns them that with her, they are going to get even wetter. Meanwhile, the boys are at land guarding the bag, but while they don't get as much action as Junichi, they are busy scoping for the sweet cheeks all around the beach. Then, Junichi and the girls play beach volleyball, and when the ball rises up, Reiko smashes it to Junichi's face and excuses herself that she got excited playing with the ball. Renko tells Yukana that they should find dinner for everyone, and while they both are away, Nene suggests that they should make a sandcastle. Later, they manage to build a hefty sandcastle, but suddenly, Yukon and Renko are between some dudes who want a taste of their sweet cheeks. Junichi goes to her, feeling insecure about himself, But when Yukana spots him, she and Renko quickly leave with Junichi. Later, Yukana asks Junichi to put sun lotion on her back, and Junichi realizes that his time has come. Renko takes a step further and goes full frontal, asking him to do the same for her. Yukana gets jealous and follows her lead, leaving Junichi to get lost in the sauce. As his subconscious goes crazy, he spurts out his white, creamy sun lotion and with his almighty technique, spreads it all over both girls' backs. Meanwhile, the boys are still depressed over the fact they didn't bag any baddies, but Shinpei gets their spirits up, saying that he has a plan for tonight, and that they need Junichi for it. During dinner, while Junichi is enjoying his food with the girls, Shinpei calls him over. He tells Junichi that as boys, they need him to do them a favor for their master plan in the inn. Later, while the girls prepare themselves for their hot spring bath, Shinpei is preparing spy tools for himself and the boys so they can peek at the girls' sweet cheeks and milky melons. Junichi tries to change their minds, but they tell him that if he's not joining them, then he likes to gag on glizzies. Kigo tempts him, asking if he doesn't want to see Yukana's twin milkies, but Junichi tells them that it's because he wants to see it so badly, he wants it to be special. At the hot springs, the girls are carelessly enjoying themselves, but when Yui expresses her worry about peeping toms, however, Renko assures them that Nick Fury himself guards the place as he carries his Second Amendment everywhere. Renko starts playing with Yukana, putting the L in LGB. But when Yukana points out that Nene has bigger snow globes, she changes the target. Yukana joins Renko to two-time poor Nene, leaving Yui alone with her flat-screen TV. Yukana shows her some love as well, and Yukana tells Yui that she is actually very happy that she's there with them. In the woods, the boys are on their way to the hot springs, and they find a trap set by the innkeeper. Junichi sees the chance to sabotage the whole plan, so he steps into it. However, the trap turns out to be fake and was planted by Shinpei as a loyalty test. They shoot Junichi, chase him down, and while he keeps running, he ends up falling from a cliff. With Junichi gone, the boys continue their endeavor, but they run into real traps. Kigo tells Shinpei that they should fall back, but Shinpei refuses to do so as their goal of seeing a pair of sweet cheeks is close to reality. They turn into the Matrix and bypass all the traps, but Shinpei gets hit by arrows and falls dramatically into Kigo's arms. Shinpei tells Kigo to finish the mission and hands him the camera to record the girls, and while Kigo is motivated to do so, he steps into a landmine that triggers the fireworks that the girls are now enjoying. Hours later, Junichi wakes up on Yukana's lap, and she tells him that they found him knocked out on the beach, while the other boys are knocked out in their room. They both enjoy the night view, and Yukana expresses how happy she is about going on this trip. After hearing this, Junichi gathers his bravery and asks her to go again, just the two of them. Yukana smiles and asks Junichi what his dream date would be, and he tells her that he would love a romantic evening at an amusement park. They enjoy each other's company, and the girls can only watch, realizing who Junichi's heart belongs to. Days later, they run into Yukana's old friend Dai, who looks like he will flirt with your mom and become your dad. He talks with Yukana to catch up about the old days, and he invites her to have lunch with him and other childhood friends. Yukana agrees, while Junichi is in the background being an insecure wimp. Dai asks Yukana who the ugly dude in the back is, and Yukana introduces Junichi to Dai as her boyfriend. Dai grins at that statement, and when the couple leaves, Dai licks his lips, wondering what kind of relationship they had. Junichi imagines Dai flirting with Yukana, only to kiss her afterward. He bangs his head on a street sign and asks Yukana about him. Junichi expresses how insecure he feels, stating that Yukana was embarrassed to introduce him to Dai. Yukana asks Junichi if he really feels that way, and when he says yes, Yukana gets upset and runs home. At night, Junichi watches Bo talking about how much fun she had on the trip, and the next day, the boys are the same way after seeing sweet wet cheeks jiggle on the beach. Shinpei thanks Junichi for the beach trip, but Junichi is slumped on his desk, so Shinpei turns into a bro and tells him to pour his heart out to him and the boys, and Junichi explains what happened. Junichi tells them about Dai, and Shinpei warns him about becoming a cuck. Shinpei tells Junichi that he might like seeing his girl getting laid the pipe by another dude, and that Dai probably packs a golden pickle that will make Yukana squeal, but Junichi calls him a moron as he doesn't have that kind of desire. Just then, Yukana walks in, and when she ignores Junichi, Shinpei warns him that if he doesn't do anything, Junichi will get his future baby mama taken away from him. Junichi plans to talk to her after school, But when he tries to do it and invites her to go home together, Yukana rejects, saying that she wants to hang out with her childhood friends. She leaves, and while the boys laugh at him, they take JJunichi to the karaoke. There, they sing depressing songs, and when a girl pops up on screen, JJunichi licks her, thinking it's Yukana. Shinpei punches him and tells JJunichi to stop being a wimpy loser and apologize to Yukana, even if he's not in the wrong. He gets hyped about it, but on his walk, he spots Yukana and Dai together in a cafe. He perishes into pieces and starts flying to heaven, seeing his girl with another dude. The next day, JJunichi thinks that maybe Yukana has just been playing with his feelings all this time and that he's now ready to go back to his old self as a loser. But he suddenly drops a tear and realizes that really does love her. Yukana greets him and is happy to see JJunichi regretting what he did wrong, but JJunichi tells her about what he saw yesterday and asks Yukana why she was alone with Dai. She reveals that she talked with Dai to catch up after the others had left, but JJunichi refuses to believe what she's saying, and he believes her to be cheating. JJunichi tells her that he has had enough of her nonsense in playing a virgin loser like him to fall in love with a cheater like her. JJunichi sees a painful look on her face and he runs away, wondering why she looked at him like that. At school, JJunichi and Yukana are ignoring each other, and Yui notices it. She asks JJunichi about what happened, and he tells her about how he doesn't understand Yukana's feelings and why she dated him in the first place. JJunichi continues yapping about how Yukana was just messing with his feelings and that it's impossible for a girl like her really love a loser like him. Yui gets annoyed and tells JJunichi to shut his hole and that he should be more caring about Yukana's feelings instead of being selfish. Later, Nene jumps on JJunichi's back, asking him what's wrong, and he tries to deflect her attention. But Nene knows him better than anyone and demands JJunichi to tell her. After JJunichi tells her what happened, Nene tells him to stop being a selfish moron or he will end up with her as his baby mama. That night, JJunichi watches Bo's stream where she talks about JJunichi and how she fell in love with him, even though he's taken. Yui cries and tells her stream that she wishes for the guy she fell in love with to go back to being cool instead of an idiot. JJunichi realizes his mistake and asks the boys to talk tomorrow, while Yukana is in her room, alone and depressed. The next day, Yukana talks to the girls about JJunichi, breaks down in tears, and is unable to properly express her feelings. After hearing this, Renko leaves them as she wants to shove her fist up JJunichi's plot hole. Somewhere in a restaurant, JJunichi is with the boys. Just then, Renko barges in, wanting to make him squeal in pain, and scolds him for being a selfish, pathetic boyfriend who made Yukana cry. JJunichi agrees to her every insult and tells the whole world that he will go to Yukana so she will stay with her instead of some dumb dude, and Renko is happy to see that JJunichi actually has some guts. Just then, Dai and his guys walk into the restaurant and they sit close to them. The NPCs start talking about how thick Yukana is and how much Dai wants to defile her face. Dai adds that after he's done, the dudes can take turns on her. JJunichi hears every word, and while remembering all the amazing times he had with Yukana, JJunichi gets angry. Renko is about to throw hands, but JJunichi stops her and deals with these idiots himself. JJunichi demands Dai take back what he said, but Dai doubles down on what he said and states that Yukana is the type to become a public toilet in the future. JJunichi holds Dai by the collar, telling him that Yukana is not that type of girl, but Dai has enough of JJunichi's nonsense and rallies his guys to take the argument outside. They surround JJunichi, and when JJunichi tries to attack Dai, he dodges his weak attempt. However, JJunichi pushes him down and bites his leg, demanding Dai never go near Yukana ever again. Dai begs his goons to help, and they step on JJunichi, but JJunichi refuses to let go of his powerful bite. He bites even harder, and Dai squeals loudly in pain, but JJunichi demands Dai to promise. Dai promises to never go near Yukana again, and when JJunichi believes him, he gets a kick to the face. Suddenly, Renko joins the fight and puts one of the goons in a lock. They try to attack her, but Renko beats the hell out of them like she's their drunk daddy. The other guys are scared of her while Dai approaches Renko and starts creeping on her body. She gets surrounded by them, but before anything happens, the boys pop up to save her like real men. They tell JJunichi to stop being a wimp and go to his girl Yukana. He tells them he loves them and heads for Yukana, leaving them to face Dai with his goons. While on the run, JJunichi tries to call her, but Yukana is in the cafe, ignoring his phone calls. It leaves him no choice, so JJunichi texts Yukana, telling her to meet him behind the school. Meanwhile, Yui and Nene talk trash about Junichi to Yukana, saying that she needs to show him who's boss and bend him over. Yukana expresses her doubt about whether Junichi really likes her, and Nene, the person who knows Junichi the most, assures Yukana that while Junichi is a moron, he has a good heart. Yui asks Yukana if Junichi ever told her how he truly feels about her, and Yukana feels that he might be lying. Yui suggests that she ask Junichi to find out, and Yukana thanks them, stating that she will go to find out how he really feels. Meanwhile, Renko and the guys have wiped the floor with the goons, leaving Dai the only one standing. He apologizes and begs for mercy, but Renko and the boys are not buying his words. Suddenly, an annoying little kid pops up which distracts them, and Dai sees his chance to run away, pushing the little kid to the floor. Minoru helps up the little girl and Dai mocks them for being idiots, but Minoru gets up and turns full choji as he believes in protecting the kids. Minoru chases him down, and Renko catches Dai to stop him. She pushes Dai to a corner and roasts him, saying that dudes like him disappoint in bed often, and Renko kicks his baby jewels. Renko steps on his neck and opens an opportunity to let Minoru loose. Minoru goes crazy and rips off Dai's puny dingus off. Meanwhile, Junichi waits for Yukana behind the school where he once confessed his feelings for her. He gets a photo from the boys, showing that the losers have defeated the morons, and Junichi stays to wait for Yukana. Junichi remembers his highlights of the past year and sees that Yukana is at the center of it all. Just then, Yukana appears, and Junichi goes to his knees to ask her to date him. Yukana begs Junichi to get up, but Junichi refuses, continuing to tell her how selfish and weak he is as a person. He expresses how he was once an awful person who only wanted to clap to lose his virginity, but he has now changed. Junichi expresses how much he loves Yukana, and when she asks him what he loves about her, Junichi tells her how he can't live without her and her good and bad sides. Yukana gets riz and falls in love all over again. She tells him to get up, and when she asks why he's proposing again, Junichi tells her how he wants to propose his feelings to her properly. Yukana asks him to go on a date, and he agrees. Later, they meet up, and Yukana wears the clothes that he picked for her, to which Junichi tells her that she looks perfect. Yukana takes him to an amusement park for their date, revealing how she remembers how much he wants this. They ride the rides, haunted houses, and merry-go-rounds like lovers who have their own worlds, and after a few hours, they take a break. Then, they go to the arcade to look for phone booths, and when they find it, Junichi gets distracted by all the couples around. He looks to see that Yukana is now missing, and when he heads to look for her, he accidentally walks into a couple smooching. Junichi thinks to himself that Yukana might want to do the same, and she pops up behind him, scolding him for going missing. She takes him into a photo booth, and there, the booth asks them to kiss for their photo. Yukana tells him to do it, and when Junichi goes for the kiss, she tricks him and makes him pose the duck face for the photo. Later, they enjoy the scenery from the pier, and there she hands him the picture. Just then, she gets closer to him and asks Junichi to come back here next year with her and for years to come. Junichi asks her why she trusts him so much, but instead of answering, Yukana kisses him deeply. She runs away, leaving Junichi confused, but on her run, Yukana blushes as she can't believe how much of a hopeless simp she is for Junichi. The next day, Junichi thanks Yui for her advice to him, but she gives him all the credit for being able to solve his issues. Suddenly, Nene jumps on his back and points out how he suddenly looks more handsome, which Yui notices as well. Renko appears with Yukana beside her, and Yukana glares at Junichi with an eye full of love, which Junichi folds to. The girls see this happening and demand them to spill the tea, but Yukana pulls him away from them and runs away with him to keep their romance alive and a secret.